Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a battle between the 2021 Challenger decks from Magic the Gathering and the Defeated God Challenge deck from Journey into Nyx. Over here we have Azorius Control, we have Dimir Rogues there, Mono Green Strampy there, and Mono Red Aggro there. We'll be playing 2 games, first on normal difficulty with 3 Rollicking Throngs and then on hard mode. And for these games we're going to be using 3 hero cards. We have the Harvester, which says tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Vanquisher, which says your starting hand size is increased by 1, your maximum hand size is increased by 1, and the Explorer, which says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Get started by drawing our opening hands. Control draws a Glass Casket, Vanishing Light, Plains, Omen of the Seas, Thirst for Meaning, Negate, the Birth Meletus, and Plains. I think this doesn't have any blue mana, and I kind of really need that, but we also have 2 bits of removal, and that might be enough for us to get started here. Rogues draws a Merfolk Windrobber, Eliminate, Heartless Act, Vantress Gargoyle, Drowning the Lock, Xerasan the Trickster, Island, and Dismal Backwater. This is a little short on lands, but I think we can still keep it. Stompy draws a Kazandu Mammoth, Garruk Unleashed, Primal Might, Kazandu Mammoth, Lovestruck Beast, Surfarian the Hengehammer, Forest, and Primal Might. It's not an amazing hand, but I think we'll keep it. Aggro draws a Fervent Champion, Mountain, Rimrock Knight, Torbrand, Thane of Redfell, Mountain, Royal Eruption, Bone Crusher Giant, and Fervent Champion. Because it's multiplayer, we'll draw on our opening turns. Control draws a Birth of Meletus. Rogues draws a Merfolk Windrobber. Stompy draws a Surfarian the Hengehammer. Aggro draws a Kargan Intimidator. Control will play both planes. We'll tap them both and we'll cast Glass Casket. This is an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with converted mana cost 3 or less until Glass Casket leaves the battlefield. This will exile one of the Rollicking Throngs. Rogues plays an Island and a Dismal Backwater. That's a land that enters the battlefield tap. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. You tap for blue or black. We'll go up to 21. And then Rogues will tap the Island and will cast a Merfolk Windrobber. This is a 1/1 Merfolk Rogue with flying, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. You can sack it to draw a card. Activate this ability only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Stompy will play a Forest and will play a Kazandu Valley. This is a land that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap for green. We'll tap 1 mana and cast Heart's Desire. This is a sorcery adventure. Create a 1/1 human creature token. Aggro will play 2 mountains and we'll tap them both, casting 2 Fervent Champions. This is a 1/1 human knight with first strike and haste, and whenever it attacks another target attacking knight you control, it's +1/+0 until end of turn. The equipped abilities that you activate, that target Fervent Champion costs 3 less to activate. We'll go to combat and we can swing with these hasters. We're going to attack the 2 Fervent Champions, which give each other +1/+0, making them 2/1 first strikers. This will defeat another Rollicking Throng. And then we will go to Xenagos' turn. Now, Xenagos can potentially kill us on his first turn before we can do anything else. And if that happens, we're going to mulligan whatever card that would actually kill us. So we will cast the next 2 cards. The first one is an Ecstatic Piper. It's a 2/2 Satyr Reveler. When it enters the battlefield, Xenagos Ascended attacks this turn if able. And when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 2 life. We'll also get a Xenagos Scorn. Xenagos gains Trample until end of turn and attacks his turn if able. We're going to be attacked by Xenagos. We'll take the 6 damage and go down to 15. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws a Neutralize, and we will discard the Neutralize. Rogues draws an Island, and we will discard the Merfolk Windrobber. Stompy draws a Forest, and we'll discard Surfarian the Hengehammer. Aggro draws a Mountain, and we will discard the Royal Eruption. We'll untap. Control draws Shadow the Sky. Rogues draws a Swamp. Stompy draws a Stonecold Serpent. Aggro draws a Mountain. I think we have the win in hand here. Aggro will play 2 mountains. We'll tap 2 mountains to cast Stomp. This is an adventure and damage can't be prevented this turn. It deals 2 damage to any target. We'll target the Ecstatic Piper. The Piper dies. We'll gain 8 life to go up to 23. We'll go to combat. The Fervent Champions will attack the remaining Rollicking Throng. The Throng dies, and then Rogues will tap 2 and will cast Heart the Sacked. This is an instant. It says choose one, destroy target creature with no counters on it, or remove up to 3 counters from target creature. We'll destroy Xenagos. Xenagos is a 6/5 legendary enchantment god. It can't leave the battlefield as long as the Reveler is on the battlefield, and when it leaves the battlefield, each player wins the game. So we just defeated Xenagos pretty easily here. We were fortunate not to have game enders cast by Xenagos, and so we'll be right back for hard mode. It's time for hard mode. There are 4 Rollicking Throngs assembled here. We'll go ahead and get started by drawing our opening hands. Control draws Thirst Remaining, Plains, Negate, Plains, Slot Coming, Birth of Meletus, Omen of the Sea, and Thirst Remaining. I don't think we can keep this with all the blue cards and no removal, so we're going to mulligan. Because this is multiplayer, we'll get 1 free mulligan. And we have a Temple of Enlightenment, Shark Typhoon, Island, Elspeth Conqueror's Death, Plains, Temple of Enlightenment, Island, Omen of the Sea. It's a slow hand, but it's better, so we'll keep it. Rogues draws Dismal Backwater, Temple of Deceit, Swamp, Island, Temple of Deceit, Island, Soaring Thought Thief, and Zerasand the Trickster. It's not great, but I think keep it because the Soaring Thought Thief is pretty good. Stompy draws a Thrashing Brontodon, Primal Might, Thrashing Brontodon, Forest, Yorvo, Turn Timber Symbiosis, Forest, and Forest. I think this is a slow but acceptable first hand. Aggro draws a Royal Eruption, Rimrock Knight, Mountain, Mountain, Royal Eruption, Mountain, Castle Embereth, and Spikefield Hazard. It's not amazing, but it'll work. Control draws an Island. Rogues draws an Island. Stompy draws a Forest. Aggro draws a Kargan Intimidator. Control play a Plains and an Island. Rogues will play a Swamp and an Island. Stompy will play 2 Forests. Aggro will play 2 Mountains, tap them both, and cast a Kargan Intimidator. It's a 3/1 human warrior. Cowards can't block warriors. For 1, you can choose any that has not been chosen this turn. It gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn, and target warrior gains trample until end of turn. Xenagos will cast the top 2 cards. The first one is Madden Oread. This is a 4/2 enchantment Nymph Reveler. As long as 5 or more Revelers are on the battlefield, it attacks each turn if able, and when it leaves the battlefield, each player gains 3 life. We also get Ripped to Pieces. At the beginning of combat this turn, each Reveler deals 1 damage to each player and each creature those players control. This is the mulligan effect because this will defeat our decks before we have a chance to do anything and we have no way of responding. So we will mulligan this card. And we draw an Ecstatic Piper. Xenagos and the Oread will both attack. We'll just take the 10 damage and go down to 10. At the end of the turn, Control will play the Omen of the Sea. This is an enchantment with flash, and as it enters the battlefield, scry 2, then draw a card, and you can pay 2 and a blue and sack it to scry 2 more. We will take and keep the Banishing Light, and we will put the Emeria's Call on the bottom. Draw the Banishing Light. Rogues will spend 2 and cast the Soaring Thought Thief. This is a 1/3 human rogue with flash and flying, and as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0, and whenever you attack with 1 or more rogues, each opponent mills 2 cards. We'll untap. Control draws a Plains. Rogues draws a Swamp. Stompy draws a Wildwood Tracker. Aggro draws a Bone Crusher Giant. Control will play a Island, and we will play a Temple of Enlightenment. It's a land. It enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. You can tap for white or blue. We'll take the Skyclave Cleric and stick it on the bottom. And then we'll spend 3 mana, and we will cast Banishing Light. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until the Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. We will exile the Madden Oread. We'll gain 6 life to go back up to 16. Rogues will play the Island and the Swamp. Stompy will play 2 Forests. We'll tap 3 of them and we'll cast Yorvo. This is a 0/0 Legendary Giant Noble, and it enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. Then if that creature's power is greater than Yorvo's, put another +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. We will tap 1 mana and cast a Wildwood Tracker. This is a 1/1 elf warrior. When it attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This will add an additional counter, making Yorvo a 5/5. Aggro will play a mountain and a Castle Embereth. Castle Embereth is a land and it's battlefield tapped. Unless you control a mountain, you can tap it for red or pay 1 red and tap it to give creatures control +1/+0 until end of turn. Aggro will spend 1 mana to make the Kargan Intimidator a 4/2. We'll go to combat, swinging the Intimidator at a Rollicking Throng. We'll swing the Soaring Thought Thief at another Rollicking Throng. This triggers a mill effect, and Xenagos will mill 2 cards. We mill a Rollicking Throng and a Wild Maenads. Then Rogues will tap 4, and we will use the ability of Xerath San. This is a 4/4 legendary Merfolk Rogue with Flash, and for 2 blue and black, return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand. Put Xerath San from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put a target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. We'll return the Soaring Thought Thief to our hand, and that will kill 2 Rollicking Throngs. Rollicking Throngs down. We'll go to Xenagos' turn. Xenagos untaps, and we'll cast the top 2 cards. We have an Ecstatic Piper and a Impulsive Return. Return 2 cards named Ecstatic Piper from Xenagos' graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of combat this turn, Impulsive Return deals damage to each player equal to the number of revelers on the battlefield. With that on the stack, Aggro will tap 2 and will cast Stomp. This is an adventure. Damage can't be prevented this turn, and it deals 2 damage to any target. We'll target a Ecstatic Piper. The Piper dies. We'll gain 4 life to go up to 20. We'll return the Ecstatic Piper to the battlefield. Xenagos will swing, and we will take a total of 16 damage from the Impulsive Return, and we'll chump the Xenagos with the Wildwood Tracker. Tracker dies. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws an Omen of the Sea, and we'll discard the Elspeth Conqueror's Death. Rogues draws a Vantress Gargoyle, and we will discard an island. Stompy draws a Gem Razor, and we will discard a Turn Timber Symbiosis. Aggro draws a Mountain, and we will discard the Rimrock Knight. We'll untap. Control draws an island. Rogues draws Xerath San the Trickster. Stompy draws a Swarm Shambler. Aggro draws Anax Hardened in the Forge. Control play an island and a plains. We'll tap out. And we'll cast Shark Typhoon. This is an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. You can cycle it for X, 1, and a blue. When it's cycled, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. Rogues will spend 2, and we'll cast the Vantress Gargoyle. This is a 5/4 artifact gargoyle with flying. It can't attack unless the defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard, and it can't block unless you have 4 or more cards in hand. You can tap it for each player to put the top card of their library into their graveyard. We'll also play a Temple of Deceit. It's landed and it's battlefield tapped. When it enters battlefield, scry 1, you can tap it for blue or black. We will put the island on the bottom. And then we'll play another Temple of Deceit. We'll leave Drown and Lock on top. Stompy will tap the forest and play a Swarm Shambler. This is a 0/0 fungus beast. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. When a creature controlled with +1/+1 counter on it, because the target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. You can pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. This will put a counter on Yorvo, making him a 6/6. We'll spend 3 more mana to cast a Thrashing Brontodon. This is a 3/4 dinosaur with 1. Sacrifice it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. That'll also put another counter, making Yorvo a 7/7. I will play a mountain and a Spikefield Cave. That's a land. It enters the battlefield tapped. You tap for red, and then we will spend 3 mana. Cast Anax Hardened in the Forge. This is a star 3 legendary enchantment demigod, and its power is equal to your devotion to red. And whenever it or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 Satyr creature token with this creature can't block. If the creature had power 4 or greater, create 2 of those tokens instead. We'll spend 1 mana to give the Intimidator +1/+1, making it a 4/2. We'll go to combat and we'll swing the Intimidator at one of the Throng. Yorvo will swing at one of the Pipers, and then we will flash in the Soaring Thought Thief, and we'll swing at the other Piper. We'll mill 2 off of the Thief's abilities. We'll mill a Dance of Flame and a Xenagos' Strike. This will defeat these 3. We'll gain 16 life to go back up to 20. Go to Xenagos' turn. Xenagos untaps. Casts a Rollicking Throng. It's a 1/3 Human Reveler. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top card of Xenagos' library. Xenagos casts that card. Cast a Impulsive Charge. At the beginning of combat this turn, all Revelers gain haste until end of turn. Attack this combat if able. And then we also have an Impulsive Destruction. Each player may sacrifice an artifact or enchantment. It deals 3 damage to each player who didn't sacrifice a permanent this way. We'll sacrifice a single Vanishing Light. We'll take 9 damage to go to 11. The 2 Rollicking Throngs will attack. One of them will run into the Vantress Gargoyle and perish, and the other one will run into Annex and also perish. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Control draws a Birth of Meletus, and we will discard the island. Rogues draws a Drown in the Loch, and we'll discard Zerasan. Stompy draws a Lovestruck Beast, and we will discard the Lovestruck Beast. Aggro draws a Torbrand, and we will discard a Royal Eruption. We'll untap. Control draws a Birth of Meletus. Rogues draws a Drown in the Loch. Stompy draws a Forest. Aggro draws a Bone Crusher Giant. There are many ways to defeat Xenagos right now. We'll do the most fun for me, which is to play the Forest and tap everything out, and we'll cast Primal Might. This is a sorcery. Target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, and then it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. This will make Yorvo a 11/11, and it will fight Xenagos. Unsurprisingly, Xenagos perishes, and the Challenger decks defeat Xenagos with a little bit of worry with the Impulsive Return nearly killing us, but we win, and that is that. Let me know what you thought about these games in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.